Staying in the oil and gas sector, we now go to our commodity segment where we'll have a conversation. Of course, one of the top conversations will be the impact of OPEC Plus deciding to cut output by 100,000 barrels per day. We have to join us for that, Mrs. Juliet Adenuga, an analyst with Financial Derivatives Company, joining us from Victoria Island. Good morning, Mrs. Adenuga. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ini. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. So OPEC Plus is going to cut their output by 100,000 barrels per day starting from next month. What does this mean?
The cut is not actually a surprise. When they increased by 100,000 barrels, it was intended to last just for a month throughout September. So it was just a plan in the pipeline of, their strategy to maximize, what is happening in the oil space presently. So it's not, you shouldn't take people by surprise, actually, but I think that the impact it's going to have, it's going to, we know already that the Labor Day, for instance, kind of technically ushers in the fall period when the weather becomes cold and there is more need for gas and oil and all those related products. So it's going to already tighten what is, happening in the global space. I know that there was a time that Biden had to visit Saudi Arabia to try to convince OPEC Plus, the people in charge to increase output because of the problem they are having with the Russian counterparties. So it's tightening further is going to worsen the already existing challenge of scarcity in oil. But if we bring it home, if we bring it home here, I don't think it's going to make much difference because we're not meeting our quota anyhow. And the increase usually is in tens of thousands. Like in May, they increased our quota by 18,000 barrels per day. Whereas we are shortfall in hundreds of thousands of barrels per day. For Nigeria, for example, I don't think the impact will be much. But on the global scene, where so much is needed in terms of oil, so much demand out there, not meeting up the demand, it's going to worsen the already bad situation for global supply of oil.
So Russia is a member of OPEC Plus, and Russia is not in support of the cutting of production. So how do you see this playing out with the Russia scenario and the threats of some countries to win themselves off Russian oil in this case? And we have more countries like China and India, even buying even more. So how is it when we put Russia in the picture? What do we see?
We have to understand that already Russia has its own challenge because of the sanctions placed on it. And we already know that the gas line of Russia has already cut off the northern pipeline supply to Western Europe. So there's also the challenge there. They are having issues with the supply. Russia is trying to prove to the world economy that it's indispensable, the oil. Whereas at the same time, the other nations are also trying to become a bit more independent because Russia is a key player in the supply of oil. So I think that what this is going to do to the whole scene is that the attempt to win off Russia's supply might not be easy because this is still in the short term. Russia-Ukraine war started this year, and it's not something that can automatically happen. It will take a lot of time for there to be structural changes that can increase output production by other countries in order to be able to get off the Russia's supply or be able to win themselves of Russia's supply of oil. But presently, it has to be something that will be managed well so that the winter that is fast approaching won't expose people to more hardships or even lead to death because of very cold regions of the world. So I think that the Russia in the scene cannot be ignored. At the same time, their own requirements or their own conditions being too tough for other nations might actually mean some other alternatives coming up in order to survive or be able to at least survive without having to meet their own needs compulsorily.
And as you've noted, Nigeria was not even able to meet up with its quota. So even when it's reduced, it doesn't really make a difference. And yet, we have to keep paying a subsidy, and subsidy keeps increasing, with all of this. But we saw between yesterday, when this announcement was made by OPEC Plus, that the prices of oil increased, and then by this morning it was down again. Well, what is it reacting to?
The price, that oil is one of the most volatile sectors in terms of the volatility. What can affect it? Ordinary speculation, any information, any news can just trigger off changes. Even the facts and the drop you cannot be sure it will remain there. Anything can happen before the close of business today. You can also see an increase. Once there is anything playing out in the international scene or concerning any of the key players in this oil markets, it can trigger off in any direction in terms of what becomes the price of oil per barrel.
And then on the other hand, we've had liquefied natural gas. It just keeps going up.
Yes, liquefied natural gas keeps going up on the backdrop of the fact that for liquefied natural gas presently too, the key players too in this particular sector of oil also have to face the demand. There are so many other energy supply also, apart from the fact that some people use thermal, some people even use nuclear for energy supply. But liquefied natural gas keep going up presently because of the shortness in supply. And for us here, for example, we also export, but our exportation, we don't export so much. But the key players can always manipulate the price or the outcome for it to affect them or to impact the benefit they get so that they can be able to, maximize what is happening within the sector presently.
All right, so inflation is out next week. What does FDC see?
Okay, for inflation, we're still conducting our analysis, and in the next 24 hours, we're going to, bring out our forecast for inflation next week.
All right, but I mean, we have seen globally the food price reducing, I think for 5 months now, 5 consecutive months. But in Nigeria, have you seen it? I haven't seen it. I don't know about you.
Yes, for some few commodities, for example, tomatoes, the basket reduced by 3,000, for instance. I think it's probably because of the short dryness we experienced, because there are some commodities that the weather affects their output. For some things like tomatoes and pepper, when it's very rainy, you notice that it spoils easily and the price goes up due to shortness of the amount of supply. But for some weeks now, we've experienced some dryness, and I think it's impacted on the tomatoes. Apart from tomatoes and new yam, because of harvest, most other commodities remained relatively, higher. Rice, flour, they still haven't increased. But I think with the harvest around the corner, for some other commodities, we're likely to experience an improvement in price of commodities for the Nigerian market.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that points to one of the issues or challenges we've been talking about in the agricultural sector, the lack of preservation. So things are only available and cheap when it is in season. When it's off season, then you don't find them, or they become expensive. So, I mean, this is another area of worry for Nigerians, because when we talk about food security, then we should have high-tech and consistent storage, warehousing, and preservation of these crops so that they are around all year round.
Yes, most of our commodities are seasonal. You enjoy them most during the season for us in Nigeria here. Or else, like you stated, we're able to improve on the storage system and the facilities so that we can be able to have them all year round, and it will make the prices more stable than fluctuating during the period of scarcity and reducing during the period of abundance, which is usually during the harvest.
And then we also see on your slide that external reserve is flat at about $39 billion.
Yes, the external reserve is still flat. It's just around the pressure on external reserve, with the CBN still, trying to stabilize the currency by pumping into the system. We know recently they had to put in about $265 million to be able to ease off the disaster that was about to happen in the aviation sector. And then there's that consistency of trying to, match the INE window or the INE window and also the private market by trying to maintain stability in the forex market in order for not to allow the rate to run away. I think that pressure has been what has remained consistent because they found such control or such interventions from the external reserves. And it's at a very high cost because you're selling at about 431 or 430 naira per dollar to the parallel markets that cashes out at around 700 or above. So I think that pressure hasn't waned. And consistently, the demand for dollar, there hasn't been any major source to kind of cushion the lack or the scarcity of Forex because it still continues, the demand still exceeds supply. And then there is that tendency for the price in the parallel market to keep shooting up. And then their intention to control or to bring a relief or to kind of manage the situation is what is playing out on the foreign reserve sector. And if we're not able to kind of put a particular control as a country, or maybe to be able to change or bring a kind of stability in that sector, it will not, the depletion in the foreign reserve will not end because it's from there that they fund the intervention in the forex market.
But we do have a lot of intervention by the CBN, some programs, the 100 for 100, the RT 200, to encourage people to participate and get more of this Forex into the scene. I mean, are we not feeling the impact of it?
Well, it's not as if we're not feeling the impact. The challenge is that the supply has to be more for us to actually see a significant impact. The demand for dollar hasn't abated at all. Because we know that, for instance, for example, we know in the stock market what happened, and there was profit taken. And we know also that we are battling with inflation. And when we are battling with inflation, for example, foreign investors tend to want to exit. All those attritions and then demand that is consistently high. We have the issue of those exporters that need to keep, importing and needing FX. We have those going to school for travel. We have those doing PTA. We have those that are going for medical purpose and for so many other reasons that we need. And we even import as a nation. We import things like flour. We import so many things, wheat, so many things. So I think because we don't have a proper source that can bring in FX, for example, a proper commodity or something we say we are exporting and we are a major exporter, global exporter that consistently, apart from oil, and we know that in oil we have a shortfall because we're not even meeting quota. Had it been we are meeting quota, for example, we are short by 647,000 barrels per day. Had it been we're even meeting that quota, for example, it would have been a lot of relief for us. But because of the theft and vandalization happening in that sector, we are short. And that is our mainstay, our main source of Forex. Our main source of Forex income is faulty. Or else we develop and grow to a point or do something that will bring a structural change that will cause us to begin to earn more FX. The challenge might not be easily, it cannot be reached away because demand keeps going on. For example, when people went back to school, more people, because of the issue of strike, for example, more parents are determined to get their children to study outside the country. Demand for FX for school fees, I can guarantee you, might have even doubled if the figures can be shown. And then demand for dollar is increasing every day, but there is no corresponding supply, even though we have interventions. The interventions you're talking about the $600 million gotten, it's not still enough. It's not still enough to, and when people are bringing in, they want to get returns. And if they don't see returns, they want to take out at the same time. And if there are so much uncertainties in the system, people will not be relaxed. They will look for other alternatives. So pick what they invested or get as much as they can and exit from the system as well.
Yeah, Mrs. Juliet Adenuga, thank you so much. It's interesting how everything is connected. ASU strike is also connected to the issue of FX shortage in the country. Well, thank you for your thoughts and perspective this morning. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Ini. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.